This is the long-awaited video of Color Theory Deep Dive Part 2B. That's right, it's finally here. It has been 7 months since the last video. A little bit of a refresher on what we're doing here. These videos are kind of a deep dive into color theory, me taking what it was that I learned in art school and as an art teacher and applying it to pinstriping. The intended audience for this would be people who either didn't go to art school because they didn't want to, or might have wanted to, didn't have the option, or maybe that's like passed them by. Other things have gone on in life. Anybody else who's interested in it. We're going to really focus a lot in this series on the real deep stuff on color, how color works, what color is. Hopefully you've watched part 1 and 2. If you haven't, I would recommend going back. But really quick, in those we talked about value, light to dark. And then in the last one, which this is the second part of, we talked about the primary colors, blue, red, yellow. This video right here is taking the two of these things and putting them together with something called monochromatic. So as I tape off the first part of what we're going to do here, let's explore that word monochromatic. Monochromatic can be broken into two parts. Mono meaning one, chromatic meaning color. So one color. Pretty simple. In the first video I talked about how throughout this series we would explore a bunch of different color schemes. This is the first real color scheme that we're working on, monochromatic color scheme. Let's illustrate this with a painting from Picasso's Blue Period, which illustrates a family that seems cold and lonely. Hope that y'all follow along in what I'm doing here and create one of these on your own. We are making a scale, just like we did our value scale, we're making a monochromatic value scale. So monochromatic, one color. With that, we're using white, we'll be adding to it. We'll also be using black. We're going to use the whitest lettering brush we've got. I've got a size 8 here. I've got wider, big, giant ones for wall stuff, but as far as lettering quills, that's the biggest one we got. I am going to palette actually on a surface here, magazine surface, as opposed to in a cup. If you look at red, red is kind of in the middle. You know, white is actually a lot brighter, black is a lot darker, so it's kind of in the middle. That's why I'm using that for this. So I want my pure red to be right in the center. Pure white's going to be here, pure black's going to be here. Let's go ahead and work on that. Something to remember from our first video is that red is a hue. Remember, hues are the names of the colors. As I said, this is a one color design. I'm adding to it white and black. We don't really look at white or black as being hues. Black is all light waves being absorbed and not being reflected back at us. White is all light waves being reflected back at us at once. So they're not really hues. One is all the hues and the other one is none of the hues. Something that is going to help us in doing this value scale for the futures, it's going to help us with blending. If you'll notice, I started with my red, add just a smidgen of black, came in, feathered it into the red that I already added because that red is wet. When I add more black to it, I start to the left of that, feather back into that little bit darker red that I had, and keep going until eventually I clean the brush, used pure black, feathered it back into that wet, what do you want to say, dark red. Doing the exact opposite here with white. A little bit more challenging with the white. So I didn't want it to go pink as fast as the red went dark red. Probably should have left a little bit more room and let it go a little bit faster. But that's something that we learned from doing this more and more. You do have to work pretty fast when you're blending with enamels. And the other thing that I'm doing too is I clean my brush before I came back and did the absolute whites on this. And really didn't leave much room for that absolute white. So let's peel the tape off of this, and then we're going to use the back of this panel here that I used for a video recently. Peel the back off of this, and we're going to make our next project on this. We haven't talked about secondary colors yet on this, but I chose a secondary color for this panel, really for no specific reason. I chose green. Green is made from mixing blue and yellow together. Any of your secondary colors are made from mixing two primary colors. We're actually going to get into that more in the next video. Pretty much everything that we talked about in our video on value is going to apply to this panel. Just like we did with grays, and that we're doing basically the same thing with the color here, doing it with green. Therefore, all the versions that we're making of green here are going to be made with white and black. This is actually darkened down, this first layer. If you recall, we talked about how dark colors kind of recede. They look like they're in the background more than brighter colors do, or lighter colors, or shall we say lighter values. I personally like the depth that you get in a pinstriping panel whenever you put your darkest values on first, and then you continue to overlap them with lighter and lighter values as you go. At another time, we'll actually end up doing a video that'll be similar, but rather than going dark to light, we'll go dull to bright, talking about intensity at that point, something else to get into later. Don't think we've really talked about it before, but one of the reasons that we would use a monochromatic color scheme in any kind of design, especially pinstriping design, is to create unity. Unity in art is considered to be one of the principles of design, which we'll talk about those a little bit throughout this as well. We might even make a whole series just on the principles of design and how they pertain to pinstriping at a future date. Y'all let me know if that's something that you want to see. Anyhow, unity in art is really the same thing that unity is anywhere else. It's when all of the things that are in a piece are working together. In this case, they're all working together because they're all part of the same team. They're all part of the green team in this panel. Even if some lines are curves and some lines are straight and maybe there's shapes and stuff in there, if they all have something in common, in this case color, then they all look like they belong with each other. You might have seen pieces of artwork, see a lot of pinstriping designs and stuff. I've made pinstriping designs where things aren't unified. They don't look like they belong together. There's too much variety. Variety is the opposite of unity in art. Variety is good. You want a lot of different things. It's what makes things interesting to look at. But you need something in common with them in order to make them work. Perhaps I use 15 or 20 different colors. Maybe I keep them all curved lines. Then there's something that they can have together again, something that creates unity. Right, here's a good opportunity to talk about another principle design, and that's contrast. As you see right here, I'm putting a really, really light color. It is white with just a little bit of green mixed into it. But this is in contrast to the black and also in contrast to the darker green that we have. So contrast happens when we put opposites next to each other. The reason that we do this is to create focal points. It also helps create excitement. Our focal point for this is right in the center. I want that part to look elevated over everything else. Now I am coming back with my mid-tone green or my mid-value green, and I'm letting it overlap some of it. That's because I want to create depth and create the illusion that that's sitting over the front of it, crossing over the front of it. You can already start to see how that color looks like it's in front of that darker green that we had before. So we're kind of building layers of depth here, trying to create a design that is a little bit more interesting to look at, and that's one way to do it. One of my favorite ways to do it. To me, a good design usually weaves different kinds of contrast together. For instance, in this, you can see where there might be a line that's curving in and another line that's curving out. They're in contrast to each other just in the shape that they have there. While we're sitting here and defining unity and contrast and stuff like that, if you look at this design, a couple of things that are going on. We have contrast with the little pointy pieces that come out. I don't know what you want to call them. Are in contrast to the curved shapes that we have, the almost circular shapes that we have in them. However, we're still getting unity because, there's a repetition to it, right? We can see curve, pointy, curve, pointy, curve, pointy, curve, pointy. We're still keeping just a few different kinds of shapes that we're creating here in this, so that there's not a whole lot of different ones going on and creating an opposite of unity, too much variety. Oh, another principle of design that we could talk about that's being used in this with what we're talking about right there is rhythm. Rhythm in art also helps unify things, but it keeps our eye moving at a certain pace, I guess, through things. And that comes through repetition. So we've repeated these curved shapes that are stacked on top of each other, you can kind of see. And we've also repeated these pointy shapes that are pointing out and down. And there's a rhythm to them. There's a certain space in between them here. Going through art school, we had to come up with different art projects and stuff that simply just isolated one of those principles, right? You would make a piece of art that was all about unity, or a piece of art that was all about variety, one that was all about contrast, all about rhythm. In order to learn those things and get them instilled in your head, and then later on, as you go to make works of art, like I'm making in this, I'm not thinking about those things necessarily and saying, if I do this over and over again, it's going to create unity or rhythm. It just becomes part of your design language. I still have my copy of the book Design Basics from when I was in college and go back to it from time to time. Often whenever I'm teaching people stuff, or really just going back and looking at really good examples of things. I think it's good to be a bookworm and keep books that you can actually sit there and flip through the pages of. I don't know, there's something about that tactile thing there that I still like. Maybe I'm getting old. Kind of going back to contrast a little bit while we've been talking about it. If you look at a lot of people's pinstriping designs, even this one right here, you'll see that I've got some teardrop shapes. Those act as contrast to our skinny pinstripe designs. When we see people that are using fills, filling in shapes and stuff, again, that creates contrast. It makes it look really pleasing because we've got these little skinny lines and we've got these filled in chunky shapes. Borders or something that we use for that sometimes. Sometimes we got thick lines versus thin lines. There's a whole bunch of different ways to use contrast in our pinstriping designs. And knowing that that's what we're doing, I really think helps us out whenever we're doing design, because we can look at a design that looks kind of boring and be like, okay, what can I add to this to make it more exciting? And look at what's there and pick out something that's the opposite of what's there and add some of that sometimes. I know we as pinstripers do this, but I don't know that we always have the vocabulary to be able to describe what it is that we're doing. Our brains are wired up to where these things are pleasing, so that kind of helps us out. It's intuitive for us to be able to do it. Even the border that I'm putting on this right here and making it marbled is contrast to those skinny lines, trying to make it more exciting to look at. We've created a big, bold black shape in the background too. Also contrast to the skinny little lines. I will mention that texture that I put in here was just with a piece of paper towel over wet paint, just daubing parts of it off after putting it on for that border. Super simple, creates a little bit more visual excitement, a little bit more variety. I finished this background yesterday and decided to let this dry, so today's a new day. Now I can come back actually with all of this dry, and I should be able to work a lot faster. I drew off some lines of where I think I'm going to end up putting the next color. It's going to be lighter at the moment. We've got processed green, white, and a darker green that we made, plus the black background I think kind of counts in this. If we're kind of looking at keeping it monochromatic, maybe it's extremely dark green. We'll treat it that way. Again, the white is white, so those don't really count. I'm going to make that lighter color on it. We'll see what this does to it. I want to see if I can't hit somewhere halfway between white and the processed green. I'll test it up here. I don't want it to appear too white. And I don't want it to appear too close to this, so it really kind of needs to be in the middle. We'll do that. Probably end up putting some processed green on this outside here. See how it looks. Move on from there. Okay, so if you followed along this far, I've got some homework for you. I want you to take what we've talked about here and make your own monochromatic panel. Do that and then email it to me at jackflemingartistry@gmail.com, and hopefully I can get a couple of those in from you guys, and we'll put them in the next video and see what you guys have done. Or see if anyone in the world's even listened to that or cares or has watched this video that far. Either way, I think it'd be really cool to see what you guys can do with one color, and I'd love it if you guys would share it with me. That's one thing that I always strive for on this channel, is a sense of community, and I hope that these videos here, we're diving into color theory a little bit, helps us to have a little bit of community with that, people that have followed along and learned from each other, see what we've done. If y'all send those in to me, title that, if you don't mind, Monochromatic YouTube video. That way I know what it is that I'm getting from you guys, and know to open and associate it with this. I guess the other thing that I should ask you guys to do is hit the like button down there on this, make some comments and stuff, subscribe, all the stuff everyone asks you to do, because it does help out with the channel. I know you guys hear it every single thing. But at this point, it kind of helps out with me starting to get paid a little bit from YouTube. If we can keep that going, then I can keep making more videos and stuff. Makes it a little bit easier, I guess, to find time to do that whenever you're not always having to make money doing other stuff. And as usual, I'm always totally game to you guys giving me comments and stuff down the bottom of this video that tell me what we're doing good, what you don't like, what you do like, what you want to see more of, what you don't want to see more of, things I could do better, things we should talk about. I really do appreciate all the comments and stuff that I get on that, and I try really hard to comment back to everyone, to reply. Again, community. Anyhow, getting back to our panel that you see that we're working on right here, just like that value panel that we talked about, we did in a different video, you can see here where that light color that I'm putting on looks like it's in front of all those other colored lines that are behind it. Creates a pretty cool little sense of depth. Something, again, I strive for. I like it. I guess it gives it like a sense of visual organization. Maybe I'm analyzing things too much. Y'all tell me. I think, too, something that happens whenever you start realizing that those colors, on the black background, that lighter colors look like they're in front, is you can start weaving it in and out of other ones, too. And playing with that and making it look like some things are going behind stuff and then coming back over the top of them. Just makes more to look at, makes it more interesting, also makes it more fun to paint. You can also push that farther by creating drop shadows. I mean, there's so many endless possibilities. And even in doing those, we're trying to keep this monochromatic. You're not really changing that. It's still monochromatic. One great place to see some really good monochromatic design work and stuff is the lowrider scene. Hopefully we don't get in trouble for jacking this image from Mercado Pinstriping's Instagram page, but perfect example. 2 cars there, nothing but blues, great design. Shouldn't get in trouble. Shout out to him. Go check out his webpage or his Instagram page. Lots of other good stuff like that. Another great place to see stuff is in the world of quilting, and quilters come up with some great designs using just one color. Some other good place to see good monochromatic designs are things like fabric design, tile work. Some great tile work out there that's got just really cool design to it, one color. Look for inspiration anywhere you can. There's always ways to find stuff. Nature even sometimes is a good one on that. You see some landscapes where all you see is one color sometimes. I think nature is probably the best designer there is out there. It dawned on me while I was working on this piece, I have a really special event coming up next weekend. There's a car show, the Alex Viola Memorial Car Show, It's a really, really cool car show. A friend of mine, Artie Schilling, invited me to it 2, 3 years ago. I think two. I went that year. I went last year. It's really, really cool. It's to memorialize uh, Frank Viola, his son, who was a Green Beret. And they raised money to go, if I remember correctly, to the families of fallen Green Beret members. And like I said, it kind of dawned on me while I was working on this. I need a piece for that, and it's like the perfect colors for it. So this piece is going to end up going to that. I'm not sure if this video will come out before that happens or not. But that kind of makes it a little bit more exciting for me. Like I said, it kind of dawned on me during it, so I kind of tried to make sure that it turned out looking a little extra special. I like the way it turned out. Kind of the point in this video that I wanted to make, though, is what monochromatic is. In fine art, we see monochromatic stuff. Pinstriping, to me, can be fine art. We're trying to apply those things here. Here's a monochromatic color scheme that I think pulls off very well. I think a monochromatic color scheme is a really easy way to come up with a good color scheme that has unity to it. I know we haven't talked a whole lot about that, but that's whenever all parts of something have something in common and they look like they belong together. And all parts of this basically are shades of green. So, or shades and tints of green. Make sure that we stick to all of our vocabulary stuff there. But that helps it have this unity. Hope this is something that you guys can use. Hope it helps you out a little bit more. Please tell me in the comments, because I'm going to keep doing more of these videos. They're going to come out slowly. It takes a little bit more time to make these color theory videos, because I try to put a little bit more editing into them, a little bit more thought into them. Didn't do as much editing in this one because it's part B of one where we already did quite a bit of stuff. I think the next one is probably going to talk about complementary colors or secondary colors. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We're going to do secondary colors before we do complementary colors. We need to go in that route. So we'll do secondary colors next time. Talk about what that means a little bit more than just the surface level of it. And we'll create something that deals with secondary colors. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, give me any feedback that you can to make these videos better. I appreciate it. I don't think of myself as an authority on this stuff, but I want to share with you guys the knowledge that I have. And again, I'm trying to apply that from an art background, you know, somebody who went to school and stuff for it, into pinstriping, because I think it all applies. And a lot of people in this industry use the stuff and sometimes don't even know the terminology of what they're using. Our brains are just wired up that it looks good to us, and we know it intuitively, and I think it's good to understand why. But hit that like button, subscribe, go check out my website, help support. See y'all later. Bye.